Hello, all you big, beautiful brains out there. Today, we're going to talk about anxiety. Before we get started, take a minute to subscribe to Psy vs. Psy. Help out your friendly neighborhood psychologist while I tell you all about some of the conditions associated with anxiety. Anxiety disorders sound, on the surface, just like anxiety. And anxiety is a word that we use out in the real world all the time. I mean, who doesn't have anxiety, right? It can be generated by lots of things, from a work situation or something going on at school, or having a toddler who has a newfound love for kazoos. But the scientific world defines anxiety differently. For psychologists and medical doctors, anxiety disorders are characterized by an excessive, persistent fear that severely impacts lives. Let's go over a few of the major conditions associated with anxiety so that you can get a better idea of how this extreme anxiety can impact people's lives. First, let's go over generalized anxiety disorder, because it's estimated that about 15% of adults here in the U.S. have experienced the symptoms of generalized anxiety disorder just in the past 2 weeks. It affects a lot of people from all ages, but those between the ages of 18 to 29 report more symptoms than any other age group. Generalized anxiety disorder is a continuous state of excessive, uncontrollable worry. There is actually a measurable difference in the way that threats are perceived by those with generalized anxiety disorder. They can worry about anything, from being on time to another world war, and they just can't stop focusing on that worry. Another type of anxiety disorder are panic attacks or panic disorder. Those with panic attacks have these reoccurring and unexpected episodes of crippling panic. These attacks usually take about 10 minutes, and for those 10 minutes, you are really incapable of doing anything else other than being scared. These attacks can be brought on by your environment, your emotions. You can even have an attack from being so afraid that you're going to have an attack. You can actually see a biological response to panic attacks. When you put someone having a panic attack into an fMRI, you see heightened activity in their locus coeruleus, which is the part of the brainstem involved in your fight or flight response. They're going to have an abnormal heart rate and blood pressure, as well as norepinephrine levels. The good news is that there is treatment, but it can really only mask the symptoms. For instance, you can give a benzodiazepine or another central nervous system depressant. That will actually make the symptoms less noticeable, but it doesn't actually stop the cause or trigger for the panic attack. Now, let's talk about social anxiety disorder. This one is a bit more predictable because it's reliant upon the situation. People with social anxiety disorder have an extreme fear of social situations and will go to great lengths to avoid them. But just because it's more predictable and fairly easy to avoid that situation doesn't mean that there are more people who are aware that they actually have social anxiety disorder. The APA estimates that it could affect as much as 12% of the population in the US, but those people just aren't seeking treatment. Instead, people with social anxiety disorder either self-medicate or engage in what are called safety behaviors, which are mechanisms that they use to prevent or lessen social interactions. Things like dressing to blend in, or avoiding drawing attention to themselves by not talking, or maybe leaving situations early. If people with social anxiety disorder are forced to be in a social situation, say like at a party, they'll be the ones who keep busy in the kitchen, making food for going out, or maybe getting more ice. So, while it seems more manageable than the other disorders that we've talked about, unfortunately, they usually go undiagnosed. That anxiety can really impact their whole life. For instance, if you have social anxiety disorder, you probably won't go to class because that's where all the people are. So you're going to miss material and tests and get lower grades. Or say you don't want to go to your job because you don't want to interact with your coworkers. You're going to end up in a lower paying position, or maybe even getting fired for missing work, than if you didn't have social anxiety disorder and you could go into work every day. If you want to know more about anxiety or other psychological conditions that can affect you, make sure you subscribe to Psy vs. Psy so you can get all of our other videos and you can learn all about the science of psychology. Until next time, keep thinking, and I'll see y'all later. Bye.